Guys, it's Alex here. I've been playing the game for a bit more than 2 years, so I've kinda recently been in mid game and I have this experience. But I also I'm managing an account that's like level 87 now. I started at like 83, so I have some more recent experience again how the mid-game player experience is and how people are thinking and what they should focus on. So let's start, shall we? So the mid-game player experience is different than an end game, even if though you should start thinking about the end game, in that you don't have a lot of teams built, so you cannot be extremely competitive in Cosmic Crucible that you might have just unlocked or kinda recently, and in Alliance War, so you just put your defense in Alliance War, any team that happens to be big, and you need to be a lot more conservative and more focus on your approach on which characters you are gearing up and leveling up, because you cannot build everything. You don't have the resources yet, and you don't have many characters at level 95. Maybe you are below that. The distinction I would make is like an endgame player is somebody that is pushing the latest content, is doing at least Incursion 1, and is at least thinking about going into Dark Dimension 6, and is building the newest teams. You of course want to build the newest teams, but you want to ignore many older teams. So in the account that I took over recently, that was level 83, I'm ignoring many teams that late game players have built up the past few months. So you want to be thinking about the raids you are doing. First of all, you prioritize your raid in the team. This is very obvious. If you have Secret Defenders and Apocalypse unlocked, you focus on them. The Horsemen are very strong in Arena. Spider Weaver is very dominant in the mid game in Arena, as is Kang, maybe the Eternals, and you focus on those teams. You want to bring them up as high as possible. Will be very useful in the late game, every one of them. Eternals a bit less, but they are very strong still, and they will help you in Cosmic Crucible and in War, any of those teams and everywhere. But you want to ignore many teams, like you want as much as possible to be hitting two birds with one stone, and to ignore many teams, to skip teams. So when a new war team is coming out, maybe you want to skip them. For example, Infestation was a very skippable team, and when you finish with arena teams that you are prioritizing, you want to go into raid teams, but try to skip as many of them and build them as a minimum as possible. So when you're starting a raid, let's say you're doing like, let's take a couple of examples. Let's go into Doom 3 to check what the lanes are starting. So Mystic or Skill. I'm suggesting you take the Mystic lane here. Mutant, Skill, and let's check also a couple of more so we have a better opinion. I'm still doing Doom 1 in the second account that I'm managing. So this is start from Mutant here, I start from by Doom 2. Let's see how it continues with the Mystic. So Mystic are completely skippable tech. Alright. And let's also check Incursion 1. Incursion 1 are all the same. We start with Mutant and Bio. Okay, I think it's very straightforward that you want to build your extreme team. They are amazing everywhere. You might still getting shards now from them. You probably have many shards of them if you are in the mid game. And definitely high priority. They are amazing everywhere. But let's say you're now reaching the mid game and you haven't really built like many raid teams. You focus on extreme. You try to skip skill as much as possible because skill is a. The invaders now are getting replaced. It's stupid to build invaders high up. Maybe you want to build Nick Fury a little bit to do the minimum as possible. If you are hitting skill lanes to do a bit better, but if you can skip invaders for the next like 3 months until the next team is going out, for we don't know exactly when the skill team is coming. I'm saying like for example in 3 months you will have the shards for the new characters. We don't know exactly. Then do it. If you can skip, bio is the most important thing now. You skipping rebirth. Nobody should be building rebirth anymore. It's debatable because of the Scourge. Maybe you want to build Peggy and Captain America a little bit, but you want to skip rebirth as much as possible and focus on the hive mind. So wait until hive mind people are getting more available, and you build this team ignoring the rebirth. Tech, you of course want to be building as high as possible. Where are they? Until they do what you need, of course. But thinking that this team maybe will get replaced in 9 months. If you don't need them huge, you can build Kestrel because it will always be amazing, a lot bigger than everyone else. Have everyone else at gear 14, let's say, and try to keep up. And if you don't go into incursion 2, I think you can manage to have everyone at gear 14, Kestrel at gear maximum that you can reach, even put diamonds, everything in Kestrel, and try to skip the remaining. Maybe you put gear 15 in someone else, like rescue, if you see that you are having a problem, or in Iron Man Infinity War, probably rescue. And if you find some value in a war and in Crucible for them, but you can't ignore them. Bifrost is probably the first new team that's gonna get like after Invaders. It's gonna get replaced. Maybe they will be replaced in 8 months or so. You build up wall as high as possible. Maybe you build up a little bit like better ideal and Sylvie to manage somewhat and have a. If you're doing the better incursions, maybe you bring them or the better raids. Maybe you bring everyone to gear 14 and Val as high as possible. So you want to be very economical. You want to be building the newest teams, but ignore many older ones. For example, Infinity Wars may be skippable for mid-game players now, even though they are amazing in Cosmic Crucible defense now. We wait to see for the next season. They're good in war still, but they are a very skippable team. Weapon X is a very skippable team. Which Weapon X? Yes, Omega Red is a good choice for Dark Dimensions, but maybe skip them together, all. Or maybe just build up Omega Red and use him as a plug and play. Or have like everyone at gear 12, level 65, and only Omega Red big, and try to manage as high as possible. This is the main way of thinking about it, to try to save resources for newer tunes, for better tunes. Maybe now in the game, if you have newer teams unlocked and everything, try to put Dr. Doom on the back burner as high as possible. Maybe bring him to gear 14 and leave him there. He's not very important to be big anymore. Maybe ignoring teams like Underworld. They're useful in war, yes, but they are skippable now. Think about the strategy of in the Horseman trials and in every scourge like this to try to maybe with the first 4 nodes to be doing more than to build some teams. Yes, Hiveman has some uses in this. Vol. There are some characters that you can build But try to build them as little as possible to get as much as possible in return. You have to see in every team you build the strongest tunes, the more important that need to be big, and you ignore many more. Also, like new teams, even Extreme X-Men, if you're not extremely competitive in Cosmic Crucible and want to see for the next season what will happen, and you're not facing the biggest teams in war, just build them up enough to be doing what you want in raids, and then put them in the back burner. Like build up Nightcrawler as possible. Build up Gambit, he's nice, especially if you have like a couple of diamonds of him. Maybe a little bit Forge, but you can leave like Sunspot and Cyclops to gear 14. Why do you don't have to build like everything. You don't get so much use unless you want to be using them in dark dimensions, and that's something that you will be like after the raids that you want to slowly go through the Doom raids and then to incursion. Then you want to be focusing on dark dimensions and unlock Apocalypse slowly. So you're doing every dark dimension like 3, 4, 5, 6. Because the rewards here in Dark Dimension 5 are very high. Dormammu is a very useful character, but maybe you leave Dormammu on gear 14 at the beginning. He's not super overpowering. Maybe if you're using the arena, bring him to gear 15, 16. But he's not. He shouldn't be the best, the biggest priority. But you get all those gear that will allow you suddenly, when you are struggling to bring characters to gear 16, suddenly you can bring a lot more, and you have your, especially the second time you finish, so you have a better footing in bringing characters to the TL gear, and then you can start thinking more about Apocalypse and about Dark Dimension 6. And you want to be as much as possible pivoting to the new teams, like teams before Superior 6 maybe are you can keep them as high as possible, even if you want to compete in a Cosmic Crucible. Take for example Master of Evil. Bring Kang as high as possible, which maybe is still useful in Arena for you, and you bring everyone else to gear 14 and abandon them. Why gear 14 and not gear 13? So there's a huge difference in stats and what not. Let's see if we have something to show here. Let's take Dr. Voodoo. There's a huge difference in focus and resistance. I'm not building up Dr. Voodoo now, but let's say he's here at 6.5 thousand focus and 5.5 resistance, and you take a can Charlotte beat him? Like even Charlotte beat him. She's at gear 14. There's a lot higher focus and resistance, even though she's an older character. There's a huge difference in focus and resistance. Well, let's build Carnage, for example, that I want to build anyways. We bring him here to level 70, gear 13, just to make it very clear. So from gear 11 to 13, he gains like 500 focus and 300 resistance. There's a big difference in level 70 to 71 that will give you a lot of focus and resistance. You see it's like a very big difference. But then from gear 13 to 14, you will be getting also, you see like how much was he at gear 13? Like 6,000, and now he's 19. That's insane. And the resistance, like that's a huge difference, and it's very important to compete this focus and resistance stat, besides everything else that you're getting. Also, On top of that, when you go to level 75 of a character, you can put a ISO on him, like even ISO 3 if you put. It will make him a lot stronger. We'll of course put ISO 4, but for now, for example, let's see for ISO 3 what the differences are. Okay. So he gains the damage on assist, he gains 10% max health, he's 2 more vulnerables, and his stats are even higher now. And he does more stuff because of the ISO. So this is a huge differentiator in you see how higher he went suddenly. Where is he? Like how much was he? He's 1,000 and 142,000. He was somewhere here, like 90,000 or whatever. I don't. So it's a huge difference when you build a character up from 70 to 71 and from gear 13 to 14. That's why I'm suggesting gear 14 is like extremely important, and you stop there. But from 14 to 15, there's a much smaller increase in stats, and then again the next big increase in stats is from 17 to 18, but that's for a later discussion if you're a mid-game player. So you're very strategic of which characters you bring to 17 to 18. But since Orange Gear is a lot available now, even for mid-game players after you finish, especially Dark Dimension 4, and the ones below give like, let me see here. Also, this gives a lot of Orange Gear. Dark Dimension 2 gives a lot of Orange Gear, and Dark Dimension 1. So every Dark Dimension will unlock you the ability to bring characters to Orange Gear, and you bring them to Gear 14. That will allow you to land stuff with focus in characters that are Gear 16, for example, so you can compete in the game modes like Cosmic Crucible and Alliance War after you. So every character that you're using daily, you want to bring him up at least to Gear 14, but then to Gear 15, only your best characters to Gear 16. You want to focus on Dark Dimensions and the more that are coming to, because you get all those stuff and characters that are nice. Apocalypse will give you so many stuff. You get many stuff here, not as much as Dark Dimension, but it will give you some rewards that are nice. So like Apocalypse is always good. And then slowly you want to be thinking about game modes like Cosmic Crucible and War. Like Cosmic Crucible gives you, even if you are lower, you get all those elite credits that you can bring your characters to gear to red stars. You get all those level 4 ions that allow you to unlock Apocalypse. These are very nice in this here, so you unlock characters and get a lot of gear to go into Dark Dimensions and whatnot. So what else? So let's compare, like for War, why I'm saying to not be very focused on War. Because in War you need to have 10 defenses, 10 to 14 offensive teams, and you're getting the rewards from winning and from losing are a small difference, and from going, it's like if you push a lot to go from Platinum 2 to Platinum 3, what? You're getting like 12,000 more victory gold, like nothing. Like 250, like you cannot buy anything with 250 war credit. Like one orb like this every, I don't know how many victories, like 12 or whatever. Like the differences are very small, and you have a lot of smaller impact because you are 1/24th of the result. To get a lot smaller rewards than in Cosmic Crucible, for example, that you need to have 6 offenses, 6 defenses, and in raids, even if you're doing like Doom raids, like Doom 2, you're getting all this that allow you to go into Dark Dimension and to unlock Apocalypse. These two that will give you a lot of extra power to your characters. So, and apart from that, you have also the rewards from every node, of course, that you are getting some ability materials, and then if you are doing a little bit better in raid seasons, like for example, if you're moving from 2650 to 1 to 25, you get suddenly getting gear 18 pieces. You're getting more of those. You're getting more T4s. So for 5 teams only that you have to build, that you will also use in the mid game, in Cosmic Crucible and in War, at least in defense, it's very much worth it to go. Like, you build your arena team, use them in Cosmic Crucible, use them in War, maybe a couple of characters in raids in the beginning. Then you're building your raid teams that you can use in Crucible and in War. Then you're building your Crucible teams that you can use in War. Let's also give some example of characters that of teams that you could leave lower. So in Gamma, you build up your Gamma, of course, is for a local Apocalypse unlock. But if you're not close to this, you build up your Red Hulk as high as possible. Maybe a little bit more than the rest OG Hulk. So maybe you bring OG Hulk to gear 15, and the other characters you leave at gear 14. Secret Defender you build to the moon, except from Doctor Strange that you can skip completely. But you can also skip Photon. It's not extremely important. You leave Photon at gear 14. You didn't build Doctor Strange at all. Or then if you different, or before that, is level 65 and gear 12. Because it's a lot cheaper, like to bring a character. The characters from 60 to 65, I'm not gonna build her up. It's 700,000 gold, and these are cheaper. But to 65 to 70, it's 1.5 million gold, and these are a lot more expensive. And the changes in power are basically the same. So, and these are a lot more available for the purple gear for the early players. So these are your 2 stopping points: level 65 gear 12 and gear 14. If you build a character to gear 13, you will also bring him to gear 14. Otherwise, leave him gear 12. And then very few characters you build up as high as possible until you reach the end game and you have everything built, and you want to have also your war teams and Cosmic Crucible teams. You still live at a more moderate build level. So let's speak here of a couple of teams. So Unlimited, Gambit as high as possible, Rogue as high as possible, because this is also Apocalypse lock, like until gear 17, then you can ignore her. The other characters, gear 14, Phantom X, gear 12, until you're at the point of unlocking Apocalypse. And I'm suggesting those gear 14 because you're gonna use them, they're gonna be useful at the mid-game, for a mid-game player, and they're required for Apocalypse. Otherwise, you could skip this team altogether. Like the 8th or whatever, like 5th best Cosmic Crucible team is skippable for you. You don't build old teams, you build new ones. Bifrost already talked about Darkhold, Morgan as high as possible, Scarlet Witch gear 12, the other characters gear 14. If you use them in Arena, maybe Agatha a little bit bigger than the rest, or Kong, like gear 15. Superior 6. Maybe everyone as high as possible if you actually are going to be focusing on Cosmic Crucible. But let's say Green Goblin to as high as possible, everyone else gear 14. Maybe at the current season we'll see in the next one, Lizard gear 12 because you say something from this, and because Lizard is replaceable for Vulture many times, and you bring Vulture to gear 14. Infinity Watch, skip them all together, but if you want to build them, like Gamora gear 14, or Gamora as high as possible, Phyla Well gear 14, everyone else gear 12. It's very nice also have Adam Warlock smaller in this scene because if he dies, he will and revives, he will clear negative effects from the rest once. Next team we talked about, Invaders like Nick Fury and Iron Fist is gear 14 if you're building them, the other one's gear 12. We'll see. It depends on where you are, of course, but there are just ball marks, and because the mid game has a huge range of players. The Death Seed. Archangel as high as possible. The other one's gear 14. Psylocke gear 12. Maybe the Magneto, if he's landing his blind, make him a skirmisher, leave him gear 12 until you are going for Apocalypse. Eternals, if you're building them, there's an argument to be made to skip Eternals if you are using them like Spider Weaver and Horseman in in Arena. Eternals are not the best anymore. Maybe you build them at gear 13 and you abandon them. But let's say Icarus as high as possible, Cersei gear 14. If you're using them in Arena, bring Cersei higher until you're using the next best. And the characters like Emma and Loki, gear 12 or gear 14 if you have everyone else higher built. Rebirth, gear 14, let's say Peggy and Captain America, and leave everyone at gear 12 if you're building them. Just skip them if you can. Pegasus we already talked about. Undying, Hela as high as possible. Zombie Iron Man gear 12. Zombie Juggernaut gear 14. And make him a fortifier to survive longer. Quicksilver as high as possible, he's amazing. But you could put him in a back burner a little bit if you're not using him in Arena, make him gear 14 and leave him as he is until you finish with more important tunes. Massive Evil we talked about. Black Order, keep them all together. But if you're gonna build them up, or build them a lot later, put them in the back burner. But if you're gonna build them up, Thanos, let's say gear 14, everyone else gear 12. Or everyone gear 14, Thanos as high as possible. Or you could say like Thanos as high as possible, everyone else gear 14 and Corvus gear 12. Nowhere you could only build up Nova and ignore the rest or leave them at gear 12. Maybe bring everyone at gear 14 and Nova as high as possible. New Warriors. Deathpool you need to build Elden Way so as high as possible until you unlock Apocalypse. Maybe leave her at gear 14 before you're having your arena and raid teams ready. And so it's a balancing act. You build up some teams to help you, some tunes to help you everywhere, but then you focus on the game modes like first arena, then raids and Cosmic Crucible. Of course, if you enjoy war a lot, maybe every now and then build a little bit bigger some war characters, but generally you want to focus a lot more on the mid-game experience. And then at this point, like New Warriors, you can, let's say, bring everyone to gear 14, or if you're lower, maybe everyone to gear 12, besides Deathpool. Could leave Dagger a bit lower than the rest because it takes a return last and it's replaced sometimes. Like gear 12 dagger, gear 14 everyone else, and as high as possible until gear 17 death pool. Weapon X we talked about. Maybe you can build up only Mega Raid and leave everyone else at gear 12. If you're high in the late game and you are competing in war and whatever, and you have many things to build, maybe bring everyone to gear 14 and abandon them. Maybe you can leave gear 12 Silver Samurai and make him Skirmisher. Web Warriors skip. Bionic Avenger skip. New Avengers, drag as high as possible if you can afford to. So if you have some right teams, build and Cosmic Crucible. Otherwise, just bring her to gear 14, everyone else to gear 12. Maybe tag as high as possible, and like Mockingbird and Ronin to gear 14 and the other two at gear 12. It's also like you bring first to gear 14, you can do this with every team, of course. Tigra, that's the most important character, then and everyone to gear 12. Then you bring the next most important character, if they're important the team, for me is Mockingbird, actually. But it's debatable if it's actually, how's it called, Ronin. Then you bring Ronin, and then you bring Agent Coulson, and then you bring Thing, because Thing is kind of slow and he gets a lot of focus on his opening move to land a stun and trauma. So even make him a skirmish and leave him gear 11. Underworld skip, but if you build them Taskmaster higher, then Mr. Negative. And like you can bring like Mr. Negative gear 14, Taskmaster gear 15, gear 16, and the other ones gear 12. Maybe next one Kingpin you can bring like gear 14 or whatever. Very rarely you want to bring characters to gear 13. Actually, maybe not at all if you are not gonna build them higher. Young Avengers keep and Heroes for Hire skip. If you build up only Shang-Chi and use him as a plug and play a little bit, like gear 14 and then abandon him. Hive Mind, before, we don't know yet, but I'm taking a guess that Void Knight at as high as possible, and then everyone else at gear 14. We'll see about that, and we'll see about Red Goblin. And generally speaking, you want to be building higher the new teams that come out and just try to invest it as little as possible so you get some value out of the characters that you're using now. And with every new team, you want to first build up higher the most important toon. And just by playing more and building the dark dimensions and everything, you're slowly gonna have the resources to bring your characters higher and to reach the end game.